Hi, this is MJ, and this is part of a wellness adventure series, and I'm delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video I have titled Everything is Energy, and I would like to share with you and do my very best to join the dots um, of understanding and kind of creating this foundation of terminology that can be related in many ways, and hopefully really join the dots of so much, make it more simpler. Things are complex when they're in isolation, when they're separate. It's like body, mind, spirit, emotions, complicated when they're in isolation or separation, or they're not in communication. Even the body, when things aren't in communication physically, in a physiological, anatomical way, that's when there's disharmony. That's when there's miscommunications and confusion going on in the nervous system, for example. So yeah, so to simplify life to me is about communication. So whether it's health and harmony in the body, it's about communication. Communication between the cells of the body is in harmony. And to really have the cells of the body in harmony, the mind must be on board with the cells. And that can look like joy and gratitude for the body, and nurturance and self-care, and excitement about life and passion and creativity, because all of those kind of thought patterns and emotional patterns are all about growth. And then to the cells of the body, that means there's life, there's growth, there's energy. And of course then there's our spiritual essence as well. And that's one of the biggest shifts happening on the planet now, is the spirit that we kind of kept outside of ourselves. It's time to reconnect to that, and the remembrance that, oh, hang on, I am spirit also. And not only am I spirit, I am spirit, our soul occupying a body. So I'm 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 moving, my spiritual essence is occupying this body and moving through this body as energy. So there's a lot of terminologies that we can kind of exchange: spirit, energy, consciousness, all of these things. And what I share with you isn't a definitive in any way. It is, it is, it is an understanding that has been brought about to my experiences and awareness, and what I've picked up along the way, and in a way that makes sense to me and simplifies it to me. Now, life is ever evolving, ever growing, and as I expand my awareness and my understanding, no doubt I will explain this in a completely, in a newly evolved way, possibly the next time I explain this. So everything is energy. We learned this at school. We all learned this at school. And the way I explain it, especially if people don't really, if that seems like a bit of an airy-fairy idea, is I get people, and I ask you now, is to imagine the microscope going down into the body in your science class. And it goes into the skin and the muscles and the bones, and then it goes into the cells and the molecules, so the biology of the body. And then it goes into this atomic particles, and this, if you go deeper down, subatomic particles, electrons, protons, and neutrons. Remember that diagram with the three balls and the connection? Electrons, protons, and neutrons. So the microscope, so we went down that far, that level, and said, right, fundamentally there's electrons, protons, and neutrons. But then the microscope came back up, and then you got to explore biology, especially if you went and did study biology. You got to explore more anatomy and physiology if you did other subjects in relation to that. Chemistry, physics, depending on what we focused on. But if you see that as levels of perception, levels of perceiving the body. So yes, there's a chemistry. We say, yes, we've got chemistry, we've got hormones, and we've got all this endocrine system around the body, which is the chemistry. So we accept that, even though we don't see it through our eyes, but there's the education and the understanding that yes, we have chemistry, we have biology. Again, we don't really see it when we look out through our eyes, but we accept it. So same thing with energy. It's just that we haven't really been educated at school. As I said, the microscope came back up, and we got to deal with other levels of perception rather than this really foundational level of perception. And on this foundational level of perception, these electrons, protons, and neutrons, electrons is electrical. Electrons is like electricity. Protons is light, so it's like electrical light. And neutrons, as far as I'm aware, is like the balancing to hold those two together in some kind of balance. I'm sure somebody else has a much broader understanding of it than that. And so when we think of electrons, protons, and neutrons, this electrical energy, electrical light in the body, it's actually telling us that at our foundational level, we are electrical energy. That's what's running our bodies. So when we think of energy, we do think of the lights, and we do talk about energy in our bodies and fuels and stuff like that. And all of it is energy, really. But foundationally, all of it is made from the same things: electrons, protons, neutrons. So this idea of that, that we're all energy, even the wall, everything is energy. When we perceive at this level, then that understanding can be there, and then it's everything that comes from that is the expression. So it's an expression. So what makes us special energy is our humanness, is our soul self, is our spirit occupying this biology, this body. And obviously the wall is more solidified and stable and less well, I would say less conscious, but it doesn't have this, the human, obviously we have a certain level of consciousness, intelligence, that the wall perhaps doesn't have. However, that is a manifestation, and so is this. This is a manifestation. It's a manifestations of ultimately electrons, protons, and neutrons, and then obviously biology, chemistry, muscles and bones and ligaments. So yeah. So once we can kind of grasp that idea, or like, be open to that idea of going, oh, okay, everything's electrons, protons, and neutrons, and then we can move into the whole conversation about how to quantify energy. And the way we quantify energy really is density or lightness. Density, lightness. And, really in our bodies, when we get very kind of denser or heavy or sluggish, we don't feel so good. And when we get lighter, we feel good. And I spoke in one video about the truthometer we have within our solar plexus, within our gut. And if it's a truth for us, it usually has a lightness or feels good or expansive. All that has a lightness to it. When something doesn't feel good or contractual, it has a density to it, or a lie, or a non-truth for us. So that's a simple way of quantifying energy. Now, relating it to vibrational frequencies. This is another way to describe the expression of energy. And to describe the expression of energy in terms of our thoughts and what we speak and our actions, all has a certain vibrational frequency of energy. And you could say that certain thoughts, words, actions has a lighter, a less dense vibrational frequency, which of course is gratitude and love and joy and appreciation. And then a more denser thought or action would be based on greed or jealousy or selfishness, or not say selfishness, greed, I forget. So more into these ones that I forget. What else? Judgment and I guess anger and things like that. So it's like the way I see it is I like to describe it as like on a radio station, and there's all different bandwidths, and there's a bandwidth over here, and the bandwidth over here is telling the story or the music of joy and love and fun and connection and abundance and we'll say in the world that people are beginning to connect more and find their voice and connect more back to their hearts, and we're beginning to remember who we are, and wow, isn't that amazing, and connect back to the earth and just really appreciate what really matters, blah 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 blah. And then there's a story over here is, oh, the world is so bad and you can't trust anyone, and look at the governments and everything's such a mess, and even to the extent of the earth is really bad, it's so disappointing, disillusion of humanity, what they've done to the earth, and the war and the abuse and the killing, and oh, it's such a horrible place. So all right, so two different stories, and what kind of draws people to this story, draws people to that story, is actually our energy. What energy are we putting out? Because it has a certain vibrational frequency. So a very dense vibration tends to move more slowly. No, we can't see with our eyes, but as our vibration lightens up, as we shift our thoughts to be more in alignment with gratitude and love and connection and caring and all these things, our vibrational frequency, our energy body starts to actually quicken up. In our cells, the vibration starts to quicken up. So it's like we're like magnets. So we start to magnetize towards the people and the experiences and the events and the conversation that's more in alignment with this. Now, if we're thinking thoughts of how horrible the world is and it's not fair and why does everything have to happen to me, and hold a lot of bitterness and anger towards things that have happened in the past, and we haven't been able to release that, and hold a lot of unforgiveness and resentment and all this kind of stuff, then we're going to have that slow vibration, more dense, and we're going to be magnetizing to the people who are telling that story, and then maybe the people who agree in agreement, because we've got a resonance with that conversation through our vibration. So when we kind of have our awakening or become more aware, and and of course we do end up getting sick and ill and all these kind of things, and a lot of the reason we get ill or sick or have big challenges in life is in a way our soul has set them up to get our attention so that we could start making adjustments to kind of take us back to where our heart and our soul knows who we truly are. Of course, in truth, we're ultimately, as we awaken and remember who we are and reconnect to that essence, that heart, and heal within ourselves, in truth, all is love, all is light. But I know myself, when you're over here, it doesn't seem so true. and there can be a real sense of separation and isolation and victim energy and all that kind of stuff. And insecurity and all that kind of stuff, self-doubt, of course, all that kind of stuff. So so it does take, so then when we start to shift our thoughts, we can start, that's how we shift our energy, because our thoughts are so powerful. What we do with our mind and our emotions is so powerful because it gives off so much energy. When you have a strong emotion, what happens in your body? What's chemistry is flying off, and how do you feel? You can feel it in different places, and you either get hot or, whatever it is, we have so much stuff going off in our bodies that can make us, react or whatever it is, until we learn to be more steady and mindful and detach yourself a little bit, or become more of an observer of our mind and our bodies, and go, oh, okay, how do I want to respond in this situation, rather than the old ways of just reacting and snapping because of the ingrained patterns and habits that we're so used to. So initially to make those changes can be a bit challenging, because our habits is in these old ways, and the neural pathways in our brain can be ingrained to think a certain way, to act a certain way, to feel a certain way, and our emotions are triggered by our thoughts. So, how we think affects our emotions hugely, and I would be definitely demonstrating that hugely and so simply. Not only our emotions, or how we think affects our posture, and that's just the way it is. That's actually what happens. If somebody feels depressed or off, straight away the shoulders are going to be in, the heart's going to be closed. I don't want anyone to see me. Close off that sense of vulnerability, perhaps. But if somebody feels confident, relaxed, good about themselves, shoulders goes back, heart opens, chest opens, yes, a different attitude. So so very much when we become more and more aware, realize, wow, our thoughts affect our posture, our thoughts affect how we feel, and we can, if we don't feel good, we can use our thinking to shift how we feel, so that we do feel good. So we start shifting our vibrational frequency into the good vibrations, and then we naturally start to attract those situations and events and conversations and people that are, maybe the old conversations were surrounding people who were quite negative and judgmental and complain all the time. And then as we shift, as we change, our beliefs and conversations going on in our head, and be more mindful of what we speak, and if we find ourselves spiraling down in whatever kind of emotions, then we take the reins on that and start to shift our thinking. Then we start to end up in conversations with people who really who's speaking about the good stuff in the world, and how such amazing opportunities are happening, synchronicities, and the creativity that's going on in the world. So it's a very different story, and very supportive, and can be authentic and all these kind of things. So there's things people say to me these days, and I'm like, oh, really? Does people still think that way? Because it's not in my world. It's just, I don't attract it. It's just not my world. It just couldn't come near me because unless I'm maybe having a big down day. But generally, I don't tend to hear a lot of the bad news, and yet I hear some newses. I generally hear from people what I need to know. I trust that I always hear what I need to know, that's relevant and that's helpful for me, and perhaps to helpful in how I work with clients, and awareness of what's going on in the world, because I don't feel like I miss out on anything that's happening in the world. I still have an awareness that there's two stories going off right now on the planet, and they can be quite different, and lots of variations in between. So this idea of vibrational frequency. So it's interesting because once we start to talk about things as energy, it's like the terminology becomes more musical, harmonic, and resonance, and vibration, and frequencies. But it does start to make sense with using those terminologies, because even now I see the body as an instrument, and I do some sound healing and toning, which is just kind of come or reawakened within me. And I absolutely can sense in the body how sound, because sound is vibration, right? So when I do a tone or a sound, or like Tibetan bowls and crystal bowls and all these things, they have a certain vibrational frequency, so they can bring into harmony the body. They can allow the body to entrain itself into the vibrational frequency of the sound. So it's very so now the idea of sound healing and all that, which didn't make sense to me that a little while ago, a few years ago, now it makes sense to me, absolutely, because not just in an intellectual way, but in a sensory way, in an awareness way, because I'm so tuned in with my awareness now and sensitivity to energy, very, very in tune with energy. In some ways, it's the most thing that makes sense to me now, and that's why I really want to get this kind of conversation going, and just see where you're at with it. I'd really love your feedback on this video. Does it make sense? Have you any questions? I would love the opportunity to reply to your questions on this. It is a conversation that I'm quite eager to talk about and to explore further, and to develop my ability to communicate effectively as well, because I think it's really important. I think it's really, really important conversation, because I really feel like when we can get this idea not just as a concept but as a, yes, of course, everything is energy, that makes sense, then it starts to simplify a lot of things. It really does start to simplify a lot of things, and how one thing relates to another and how things happen. And also the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is what you give out, you get back. And what did Jesus teach us is give unto others what you would like to have given unto you, which means as you give out, you get back. So what we give out in our thoughts and our words and our deeds, we get back. So there's the idea that if you want to have more things to be grateful for, have gratitude. Do your gratitude list, and then you attract more things to be grateful for. If you want to feel more uplifted, or feel more valued or purposeful, then do something for somebody, gift it out, and then you get it back. So yeah, so that's the idea of the law of attraction. And when we can kind of understand or accept that everything is energy, it's like, oh, okay, you can just see like everything is magnetic, electromagnetic actually. If you see fields of energy, electromagnetic, and we're just attracting each other. So even for us to be in this 21-day adventure group, somehow we're all here together. So if you can imagine, we're like 21 magnets that are all here, and over the time as we stay here, we become more harmonic in a way, more tuned in to each other's frequency, to each other's energy. And we may not feel quite that now, but I can feel it. I can feel it bit by bit by bit. Of course, the more we tune in and become resonant with our own frequency, body, mind, spirit, then we can start to tune in with others as well. And that's incredibly powerful, what we can do with our minds and our emotions when we come together. There's been a lot of experiments of people who have gone to war-torn places, and a group of people come together in resonance, in meditation, and actually have these statistics of less fighting that night, or the hospitals didn't have as many calls, or there's a lot of statistics, and I hopefully I can find some for you, but it's immense, and unfortunately it's not the stuff that makes the news. Oh well, I'm going to leave it there, and it's 23 minutes, so it's more than enough. So thank you for watching, and yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback on this one. Thank you. Namaste.